Harira is a Moroccan Ramadan staple, and my mom is going to show us how to make it the Fes way. This is my grandmother Hajja's recipe. Allah yarhamah, she passed a few years ago, but we still make her harira every single Ramadan. The precise measurements will be in the caption as always, and we're going to start by boiling our tomato so that we can easily peel the skins off, and then we're going to cube our meat into small little bite-sized pieces, making it easier to eat. We always make a huge batch because this is a labor of love. It takes a long time, but the measurements will be for one pot. So we're going to start by adding a handful of parsley that we chopped, and then my mom insisted on showing everybody how to chop the onion the way my Hajja did it.
First time I saw this, I was flabbergasted.
As we add our meat and our seasonings, I'll let my mom tell us more about this recipe.
Okay, so this is harira Fesia from the city of Fez. Harira is 3 parts. The stock, the tomato stock, tadwira, and the flour to thicken it.
Now, the Fes harira is different than harira in other parts of Morocco, so if you don't agree with some of these steps, please still be respectful in the comments, as we are carrying on a tradition from our family and making it the way that my grandmother made it every year. After adding our seasonings and our saffron that we let sit in a little bit of hot water, we're going to add our water. So I actually measured it and it ended up being 12 cups of water. And you want to add cold water because you don't want it to cook the meat prematurely and then make it tough. So cold water is important, and then we're going to bring that up to a simmer. So bring this up to a simmer on medium-high heat, and then we're going to cover it and let it cook for about an hour and 15 minutes to get the meat tender. Now, while the meat is cooking and the broth is simmering, it gives us an opportunity to prepare the other components of the harira. So we're going to boil some lentils for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to place them on a plate and then add some squeezes of lemon juice. Put that to the side, and then we're going to pulse our peeled tomatoes, and we're going to add a heaping tablespoon of tomato paste to that, and that's going to be for the second part of our soup. And then in the middle of that, I would just check to see if our meat was tender, and it was. So since our meat was tender, at this point, after an hour and 15 minutes, we can add our tomato, and then we're going to add a little bit of sugar to remove this acidity of the tomatoes, or counteract the acidity of the tomatoes, I should say. And we're going to add a tablespoon of chicken bouillon powder. Both of these things are optional, the sugar and the chicken bouillon, but we like it. We think it adds something to the harira. Now we can add our lentils at this point, and they need to simmer for a little bit to get soft as well. You can see this plate is for 2 pots, so I'm splitting it in half, but the measurements are going to be in the caption. Stir those in and allow it to simmer, and then after that we can add our other components. So we're going to add some cold water to a blender and some flour. It has to be cold water or you're going to end up with a flour slushy that's a mess. We want to have a nice slurry, so you need to use cold water, and then you're going to stir the slurry in, stirring constantly. Otherwise, you're going to get a lumpy soup. So you have to stir constantly as you pour in a steady stream of your flour slurry, and that is going to give a glossy finish to the soup and thicken it up. And then we added 2 additional cups of water after that. So it was 2 cups of cold water with the flour, and then it was an additional 2 cups of cold water, and stir constantly. We stirred it for about 10 to 15 minutes after this. And here is that full 15 minutes of stirring on a time lapse. Now, after about 15 minutes of the stirring, the raw flour taste should be gone, and then we can add some cold water to our blender and mix that with our parsley and cilantro. You want to do this at the very end because we want our herbs to have a fresh taste. We added some parsley at the beginning to cook with the harira, but at the end, we're going to add the majority of our herbs for that fresh taste. So now, before we add them, though, we're just going to taste the harira, make sure the salt is to our liking. And at this point, we decided it needed an additional ½ teaspoon of salt, so we added it. And then we added our herb mixture, and we stirred that in, and it just has to simmer for a few minutes. We don't want to cook it too much because we want it to be a fresh taste. And now we're going to add the last of our components, which is our chickpeas. And these are canned chickpeas, so we're adding them in now. But if you had chickpeas that were hard and you soaked them overnight, you would have added them when you added the meat at the very beginning for them to cook thoroughly. And then we're going to add our washed rice. And then we're going to stir this all together, and we're going to leave it uncovered so that the rice can cook but not mush up. And then we're done. Serve the harira in your most beautiful serving dishes, and please enjoy this recipe. It's also great with a date or shabakia on the side.